The door closed with a soft click, but the sound felt louder than a shout. Emily stood frozen in the kitchen, her eyes fixed on the empty doorway, her breath shallow. Her husband had just left the house, not in anger, not with harsh words, but with a quiet sentence that hurt more than any fight ever had. "I need space," Mark had said, picking up his coat. No promise of when he would return. No clear goodbye. Outside, the calm suburban street in Maplewood looked unchanged. Cars passed. A neighbor jogged by. Somewhere, a lawn sprinkler clicked on. The world didn't pause for heartbreak. Emily slowly sat down at the kitchen table. The coffee she poured minutes earlier had gone cold, but she didn't notice. For months, she and Mark had lived like polite strangers sharing the same roof. They talked about groceries, work schedules, weather. They avoided the real conversation because it felt too heavy, too risky. Love hadn't ended loudly. It had faded quietly. She picked up her phone, hoping for a message that would change everything. Nothing. The silence pressed against her chest. She stood up and walked through the house, touching familiar things, the couch where they once watched movies wrapped in blankets, the hallway mirror where Mark used to straighten his tie before work. Each memory felt distant, like it belonged to another woman. Emily opened the curtains in the living room, letting pale winter light fill the space. That's when she noticed a car parked across the street. A silver sedan, new. She frowned slightly. She had lived here for 6 years. She knew every car on this block. A knock came at the door. Her heart jumped. For one hopeful second, she thought Mark had come back. She walked quickly to the door and opened it. A man stood there, tall, calm, holding a small box in both hands. "Hi," he said gently. "I'm sorry to bother you. I'm Daniel. I just moved into the blue house next door." Emily blinked, surprised. "Oh, hi." "I wanted to apologize," Daniel continued. "The moving truck blocked your driveway earlier, and my mother insisted I bring these." He lifted the box slightly. "She believes cookies fix first impressions." Emily let out a small laugh before she could stop herself. It felt strange to hear her own voice sound normal. "That's very kind," she said, taking the box. "And the driveway's fine." "Good," Daniel said, relieved. "I won't keep you. Just wanted to say hello." As he turned to leave, something made Emily speak again. "Welcome to the neighborhood." Daniel smiled. "Thank you. I'm glad to be here." She closed the door and leaned against it, surprised by the warmth left behind from such a short exchange. The house felt slightly less empty over the next few days. Mark didn't come home. He sent brief texts about bills and work. Nothing emotional. Emily kept busy cleaning rooms that didn't need cleaning, organizing drawers already neat. At night, she lay on one side of the bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the quiet dot in the mornings. She noticed Daniel more. He waved while checking the mail. Once, he struggled with a heavy box, and she offered help. Their conversations were short, easy. No pressure. No questions that cut too deep. One afternoon, rain started suddenly while Emily was unloading groceries. Daniel appeared, holding an umbrella. "Looks like bad timing," he said. She smiled. "Seems to be a theme lately." He helped her carry the bags inside. The moment felt simple, but comforting. When he left, Emily realized she felt calmer than she had in weeks. That evening, she sat alone at the kitchen table, the cookie box open in front of her. She took one bite and laughed softly. They were too sweet, but thoughtful. Her phone buzzed. A message from her sister in Canada. "Just checking in. You don't have to be strong all the time." Emily typed a reply, then erased it. Instead, she put the phone down and looked around the house. She had spent so long waiting for her marriage to feel right again that she forgot what it felt like to be seen, even in small ways. Days passed. Daniel became part of the background of her life. Not intruding, just present. A familiar face across the street. Someone who said hello without expectations. One evening, Emily sat on her porch watching the sky turn orange and purple. Daniel stepped out of his house at the same time. "Mind if I join you?" he asked, keeping a respectful distance. "Sure," she said. They sat quietly for a moment. New beginnings are strange, Daniel said. They feel lonely at first. Emily nodded. Yes, they do. She didn't tell him about Mark. Not yet. But Daniel seemed to understand without knowing details as the sun set. Emily felt something she hadn't felt in a long time, not happiness. Not excitement, but possibility. Mark had left the house, but the world hadn't left her. The message came just as Emily was pouring her morning coffee. Her phone buzzed on the counter, and when she glanced at it, her heart skipped. I'd like to talk. Tonight, if that's okay. It was from Mark. No explanation. No apology. Just those words, heavy with meaning. She set the cup down, the steam rising between her hands, like questions she wasn't ready to answer. Outside, the neighborhood seemed ordinary, almost cheerful, as if it hadn't noticed the storm inside her home. The sun reflected off frost on the lawns, and the cold air carried the faint sound of children laughing down the street. She had spent the past days adjusting to Mark's absence, to the quiet that was no longer oppressive, but strangely freeing. Yet now that freedom felt fragile. Across the street, Daniel's silver sedan pulled into his driveway. He stepped out and waved, the smile warm but cautious. Emily returned the gesture with a small nod. He didn't approach, just leaned lightly on his car, observing her from a distance that was comforting rather than invasive. In his presence, she had begun to realize she could feel again, little by little. The emptiness Mark left had softened, replaced by a quiet curiosity about what the future might hold. The afternoon stretched slowly, filled with tasks that had suddenly lost their urgency. Laundry, groceries, dishes, mundane chores that once felt like walls around her now seemed like gentle routines keeping her grounded. She watched the sky darken early, winter moving quickly, and felt a subtle tension in her chest. The moment of truth was approaching. Tonight, Mark would come home. Daniel knocked lightly on her door just as the first streetlights flickered on. She opened it slightly, startled. Hi, he said, holding nothing this time. You okay? Emily hesitated. I think so. It's tonight. He nodded, understanding more in a glance than words could convey. Do you want to talk or just breathe for a bit? She smiled faintly. Breathe, maybe. He stayed for a few minutes, the conversation easy and light, about the changing seasons. A funny neighbor story, nothing serious. But every word had a weight, a reminder that someone could care without demanding answers, without judgment. When he left, Emily felt a strange calm. She wasn't afraid of tonight yet, not fully. She knew she could face Mark with honesty, without breaking apart. Evening came faster than expected. Mark's car appeared at the end of the driveway, headlights cutting through the early darkness. Emily stood on the porch, hands clasped loosely, heart beating steadily despite everything. He got out and approached, his expression unreadable. Hi, he said softly. Hi, Emily replied, her voice steady. They stood in silence for a moment, the air between them thick with unspoken words. I needed space, Mark said finally. I thought it would help me think, but I know now it hurt you. Emily nodded, careful with her emotions. It did, but it also made me realize I'm not as helpless as I thought. I can breathe on my own. He looked at her, a mix of relief and regret in his eyes. I see that now. I see you, Emily. I was blind to it before. Their conversation continued, slow and honest. No shouting, no blame, just truth. Emily told him about her feelings, about the loneliness that had grown between them, about the unexpected comfort she found in small things, even someone like Daniel. Mark listened, really listened, as if hearing her for the first time. When the night deepened, Mark turned to leave. I don't know what happens next, he admitted. But I want to try, if you do. Emily paused. She wanted to reach for him, to embrace the past they shared, but she also felt the weight of her own growth. She understood that life didn't pause for reconciliation. It moved forward with or without answers. I need time, she said softly, but I'm willing to see where this goes. He nodded and left the porch light casting long shadows behind him. Emily closed the door slowly, feeling a strange mixture of hope and uncertainty. Tonight wasn't the end. It wasn't even a beginning, not fully. But it was a moment of clarity in the fog of her life. After the door clicked shut, she walked to the window and saw Daniel's light still on across the street. He waved, and she waved back, a small smile breaking through her lingering tension. She realized that no matter what happened with Mark, her world had changed. She wasn't alone anymore. She had space, choices, and someone who quietly cared. That night, as she sat on the porch under the stars, Emily understood something important. Life doesn't wait for you to fix what's broken. It keeps moving. People come and go, hearts shift, and new connections can appear when least expected. Mark had left the house, but she was no longer alone. And in that understanding, she felt an unexpected warmth. A beginning that didn't depend on anyone else, only on the strength she had discovered within herself. The street was quiet. It's the winter night, soft and still. Emily sipped her now cold coffee and watched the sky, realizing that sometimes the most important person to return to after loss is yourself. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring. Maybe Mark would stay, maybe he wouldn't, but she was ready for it. Ready to face the unknown because she had learned that even when hearts shift and people leave, life still offers moments of beauty, connection, and hope. And in that quiet moment, Emily smiled. Her husband had left the house, but she was no longer alone in the world.